this, and I still feel it, but you approach it from a rational way. Carl Sagan talked about a telos, about a vision that incorporates the skeptical ideas, the critical thinking. What is your view on that? You know, obviously,
well, you raise a very good question. I can appreciate the new atheists, and I say many of them grew out of our toward a new Enlightenment Congress in 2005, where we had Harris and Dawkins and many others, and these people write for free inquiry constantly. I founded Prometheus Books in 1969. It's the oldest and the major free thought atheist, humanist, skeptical scientific press in the world, and we published hundreds of books in this area. None of them were bestsellers, but over the years we've sold millions and millions of copies. But suddenly, some of the major publishers, such as Norton, for example, decided to do this because they figured they could make a buck. They'll publish any book that will sell. And we're very happy because there has been an iron curtain which has descended on America, perhaps Canada, many countries of the world, where people are fearful of criticizing religion. It's considered in bad taste. So the new atheist, in one sense, has opened that curtain and has allowed criticism. But in the long range, I think we should take the higher road. I think our criticism should be thoughtful and responsible, based upon scientific and scholarly research, and that we need not be abrasive, even though we suffer this abrasive criticism of us constantly. As a secular humanist, people used to drive past my house and spit, so I'm told. I never saw them do that. But, so I've been attacked as a secular humanist, very much so, and from the other side. So I think we ought to go on to not the new atheism, though I think they're courageous.
New atheism, you mean like Dawkins?
Dawkins and Hitchens and Harris and Dennett, and one of the Prometheus author was Stenger, Victor Stenger is part of that. I talk about the new secularism, that namely we should appeal to atheists and agnostics and appreciate what they've done, but also to the wider public, often very skeptical about what goes on. And having studied science, I think you mentioned before that your parents, one was a Methodist and one was a Presbyterian, and they were scientists, but we began being skeptical. So a lot of people, and that's true of secular Jews, most Jews are secular Jews, and it's true of liberal Catholics, and now becoming true of Muslims, we find everywhere in the world. And we ought to encourage that. So I don't think we should simply reject these people. We need common ground, and they share in our defense of human rights, of liberty, of free society, and we need to be allies, yes.
Is there a backdoor way in terms of, in a sense, preaching empowerment through critical thinking? Kind of leaving some of the, the God out of it for a bit and saying, look, you can improve your thinking, improve, because it's more realistic.
But I don't want to bring the term spiritual in. That opens the door. Critical thinking, scientific outlook, but also some sense of the magnificence of the universe, this vast scene with its mystery, which we try to understand in science, and the tragedies and the difficulties in life. So there's a kind of, I think we need a kind of rational and passional, cognitive and emotional approach to life. I wouldn't want to call that spiritual. But
does that sell? Do people buy that?
Well, I think that, how many people here buy that? Something like that.
This is the
what does it sell? I think, look, I didn't have a chance to emotional. We have to appeal to the emotional.
The mass.
Yeah, we have to appeal to the emotional, not only the cognitive, but the emotional. That's why we have to build new communities in which we can cultivate the emotional appreciation of life, of its great potentialities and also its difficulties.
Positive emotion.
Well, I'm trying to say the secular humanist movement is positive and constructive, although we reject so many of these myths that have betrayed humans and oppressed them, we want to go beyond that to a new plateau. Yes, sir.
Yes, I just want to pick up on this emotion thing. I've been studying a lot of marketing in the last few years, and apparently the way people are trying to manipulate our minds or get something from us, they do it basically with emotion. They may appear, in some cases, to have presented in a rational fashion. And I'm thinking that, I'm asking you if, how do changes come about? I think a lot of changes have come about historically from experience like earthquakes, plagues, wars, these things, I think. These are the things.
Fear of the unknown.
That's
Well,
the emotion first, and then maybe the rationalization.
Well, I've published this book called The Courage to Become. I think that, in one sense, the first virtue is reason, our intelligence, and our willingness to develop beliefs only in which there is some objective support, but also the courage of your convictions and the courage to live in spite of adversity. That's very important. And humanists need to cultivate the courage, the endurance, to enter into life. It's a great game, it's a great fun, but the difficulties and to overcome. And that's part of the human condition. Time, I think, for 2 more questions, and I'll give you a rest.
Hi, I hope I'm going to formulate this question correctly, but I'm interested in your stance
Microphone?
on altruism.
Altruism, yes.
Altruism, and do you think that people should think of others first before they think of themselves? The reason I mentioned this because I read Ayn Rand and her objectivist philosophy.
Yeah.
And
well,